So what does that tell you exactly? Well, it tells you you've been lied to.
Fox News host Tucker Carlson went on one hell of an anti-vax tirade with so much misinformation and dishonesty. It's truly mind-blowing. So I'm going to play this clip for you. And by the way, there's more to this. I'm not going to play the full, 10-minute segment here, but I'm going to play a piece of this and break down just how dishonest this is. And in the process, I will show you how he puts together this misinformation, these lies to misinform the public.
Like almost everyone his age, Colin Powell was fully vaccinated against COVID. And yet, according to his family and doctors, Colin Powell died of COVID. Of course, that fact does not make his death any less sad, nor is it unusual. Many thousands of vaccinated Americans have died of COVID. Former CDC Director Robert Redfield announced just today that about 40% of all recent COVID deaths in the state of Maryland, for example, are among those who have had both shots. So what does that tell you exactly? Well, it tells you you've been lied to. Vaccines may be highly useful for some people, but across a population, they do not solve COVID. That's not speculation. It is an observable fact. People who've been fully vaccinated can still get the virus, they can still transmit the virus to others, and they can still die from COVID. Colin Powell is hardly the only example of that. So the question is, why are they telling us otherwise? And the answer is simple. They're telling us that to divide us from each other, to set the country against itself. That's been going on for a long time, but it never needed to happen. There's no inherent reason that a virus should rip apart the United States. COVID easily could have brought us together. Shared suffering often does that. 9/11 did that. And yet, from the very beginning, demagogues like Joe Biden and many others have used this virus as a hammer to smash the bonds that connect Americans to one another.
Yes, the people that are encouraging you to get the vaccine to protect yourself and others are the ones that are trying to divide people. Not people like Tucker Carlson on every night, who is vaccinated, telling others why they shouldn't get the vaccine. So there is so much misinformation in this. And as I said, this goes on a lot longer. It would take me like 30 minutes to break down the entire thing, and I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to break down parts of this here to show you how Tucker spreads this misinformation, how he puts it together. So, by the way, including that 40% claim, which I'm sure a lot of you stop for a second to think, is that true? I'll get to exactly how he put that together. First, though, just the obvious, Colin Powell, who died, had blood cancer. That wasn't mentioned at all in that segment. Like, how do you not mention that he had a cancer that severely compromises his immune system? These are the people who are dying that are vaccinated from COVID-19, people that are immunocompromised. So how do you not mention that in the segment? Now, later on, likely for legal reasons, at the end of his show, as tweeted out here by Justin, he says at the very end of his broadcast, Tucker Carlson says he left out that Colin Powell was suffering from a number of different health problems. How do you leave that out in that segment? But he did it, and then at the very end has to mention it, again, likely for legal reasons. So now let's get to the 40% thing. Before I even get to the breaking that down, this is part of how Tucker puts out his lies and does it in a way that gets a lot of people convinced. He uses somebody else and their words as a way to spread that misinformation. So he claims that 40% of people who have died in Maryland have had both shots. But he doesn't say this himself. He references former CDC Director Robert Redfield. He said it. Now, Tucker does this as a way to both give credit to the claim, but also as a way to deflect criticism away from him and onto somebody else, in case anyone looks it up. Because if you look it up, you realize that's not true. Yes, he did say it, but he clearly misspoke. And in the context of what he was saying, it's clear that he was encouraging people to get vaccinated. So I'm going to show you first the beginning part of this clip of Robert Redfield on Fox News saying this. And this is the clip that is being largely shared around in conservative circles and anti-vax circles. But then I will show you the next part of his sentence that is, for some reason, cut off from this clip.
I hear a lot of times people feel it's a rare event that fully vaccinated people may die. I happen to be the senior advisor to Governor Hogan in the state of Maryland. In the last 6 to 8 weeks, more than 40% of the people that died in Maryland were fully vaccinated.
Now, that is not true. In a minute here, I'll get to the actual stats on that. But whether he misspoke here or is for some reason misinforming the public, in order to encourage them to do what he says next. Who knows? But this is the next part of the clip that, again, for some reason, these anti-vaxxers are cutting out.
More than 40% of the people that died in Maryland were fully vaccinated. So we really do need to get vulnerable people, currently those over 65 and those 16 to 65 with comorbidities, to get boosted. Hopefully the FDA and CDC will act urgently.
So the former CDC director was on Fox News not to discuss how the vaccine isn't working, but to discuss how these booster shots need to get out as soon as possible. But that part, in that same sentence, not referenced at all by Tucker Carlson, not referenced online by these anti-vaxxers. They cut the clip out. You saw I had to get a recording off a television. That's the only place I could find this clip, is somebody recorded off their television, because no one's posting the full clip. Just the level of dishonesty is incredible. Now, let's get to the actual stats in terms of Maryland here. So this is from CBS Baltimore. That says less than 0.71% of fully vaccinated Marylanders have later tested positive. Of those cases, 1,842 vaccinated Marylanders were hospitalized, representing 10.8% of all COVID cases hospitalized in the state. 233 fully vaccinated Marylanders have died, representing 8.36% of lab-confirmed COVID deaths in the state. So it's not 40%. 40% of deaths are not with the fully vaccinated. It's 8.36%, meaning that 91.64% of people who died from COVID-19 in Maryland were unvaccinated. 91.64 unvaccinated versus 8.36 vaccinated. It's pretty clear. And of course, a lot of that 8.36% are people who are immunocompromised in some way, be it because of their age, be it because of an illness, or both. That is the vast majority of that number. But of course, that isn't mentioned in Tucker's piece. So where does this 40% number come from? Well, here's a report from WBAL TV that breaks this down.
Because Delta spreads more easily and causes more severe disease, we do see some hospitalizations.
In Anne Arundel, in the past 3 months, about 30% of the people hospitalized with COVID are fully vaccinated. Similar time frame and trend in neighboring Howard County, where health officials say roughly 30 to 40% of people hospitalized with COVID are fully vaccinated. For those wondering if I can still get COVID and get sick enough to need an infusion treatment, what's the point of getting the shot? The experts say
it's critical to get your vaccine to decrease your chances of both getting hospitalized, and also it turns out long COVID, those lingering symptoms, are much less likely in the vaccinated as well.
So that 40% number is not people that are dying. It's those that are ending up in the hospital, the vast majority of which end up leaving the hospital and they're fine and have less of an impact when it comes to long COVID because they're vaccinated, and less of an impact in general because they were vaccinated. The vast majority of people that are ending up in the hospital and dying are unvaccinated. Yet, of course, all of that is not in the Tucker segment. All of that is missed by the anti-vaxxers out there. Just, it's so incredibly dishonest. Now, of course, we can have an honest conversation about that 40% number. Yes, that is not a good number. I think it's too high. But the issue there is that a lot of people, especially those who are elderly, got their vaccines at the beginning of the year. And it's now getting to the point where they do need a booster. That is why you're seeing those numbers increase a little bit. As actually back in June in Maryland, every person who died of COVID-19 in June was unvaccinated. So that was the state for a while. Now it's changed a little bit, but all it does is show you that those who are immunocompromised, those who are more elderly and more susceptible to illness, are the ones that need to be protected and need booster shots, which is also why the rest of us should get vaccinated to help protect those people who are more at risk. But thinking about anybody but yourself is not definitely in the Fox News lexicon, especially not with Tucker Carlson and his misinformation, a guy who himself is vaccinated out there spreading vaccine misinformation.